On today's Toy Spot, we're having a look at the Marvel Select, The Amazing Spider-Man. Truth be told, actually Spot wasn't going to pick this up, and it just so happened that he ended up finding it for a pretty good price at a comic book store and thought, yeah, you know what, I'll pick it up. Pick it up. I'm sure it's going to be a nice looking figure. From the looks of it, it doesn't look too bad. Package-wise, it's in your standard fare of Marvel Select boxes, very large, to encompass not only the figure, any interchangeable accessories, as well as a display stand. It looks like the character comes with all three. Down below, the revamped Amazing Spider-Man Spider logo. This is from 2012, and on the side, the very used, frequently used Amazing Spider-Man advertisement image, if that's the best way to describe it. And when we flip around the back of the box, there's Spider-Man on the far right. There is also an unmasked Spider-Man. There's also a lizard available, as you can see right there. As for the read-up, it says, while visiting a science lab where his father once worked, Parker discovered an experiment involving insects and radiation. An irradiated spider bit him when he got too close, and overnight, Parker discovered he had overgone a metamorphosis. Gaining strength, speed, and agility, at first seeking to use his powers for personal gain, Peter would eventually realize that with great power, here it comes great responsibility, donning a mask to protect his loved ones and to help others as the Amazing Spider-Man. This also comes to us from the good folks at Diamond Select Toys. You can go to www.diamondselecttoys.com for much more. What I will do is take a break. Going to get this opened up, and certainly when we come back, we're going to get a better look at the Amazing Spider-Man. Stay tuned. More is on the way. And with the Amazing Spider-Man, for starters, you're going to get yourself a display base. Yeah, Spot's aware that he fell. What you'll get is a display base. Now, I can't really tell what's going on the sides. It almost looks like there's connector points that would have this set connect with another set. I don't think, though, unless you can connect it, you probably could connect it with the unmasked version of Amazing Spider-Man, but I don't know if you would necessarily want two of the exact same, unless the unmasked has a different version of the back setup here. So I'm not really sure what these extra pieces are here. I'll zoom in so you guys can actually see what I'm talking about. There's a little connector piece here, or some extra piece of plastic here, and one up here, and one's on either side. It might just be the fact that that's excess plastic. You know, speaking of plastic, I gotta say that there's something on a paint quality issue with the bottom of this display base. You can see that there's all these areas here where paint has just been missed. Not sure if you can actually see it, but really, here, I'll zoom in closer so you guys can see. There's a whole section where it just looks like it's been painted in with a brush, and whole sections have been missed, especially just the whole bottom area. Right across here is completely missed. The quality issues, I think, kind of carry over at the top, although it's not as visible. I suppose as the wall itself goes, things look pretty good on the wall. The window looks solid. You got yourself a little air conditioner. There are connector peg points on the sides here, on the wall, where you can actually take Spider-Man. He's got two peg holes, and you can peg him into place. It might take a little finagling, as it appears that the peg holes might be a little smaller than the actual peg, so you might actually have to apply some real pressure. But once pegged into place, you could have Spider-Man actually pegged into the wall. A nice effect. It might just take, again, a little finagling. So the display base isn't bad. I feel like the paint probably could have been a little bit better, but for the most part, it's not too bad. I wish I could almost say that for Spider-Man, however. Though he is a nice-looking figure, I find he does have a lot of problems. You know what, for starters, let's actually move into his face. The close-up on Spider-Man's face, you can see he's nicely detailed, carries over a lot of aspects of perhaps the Tobey Maguire style of Spider-Man, that he has a textured feel to the actual suit. It's not just a smooth fabric. I feel, though, that what really makes this figure suffer is the paint on the actual webbing. You can see that there are areas where the black has just been splotched and has carried into the red webbing or the red mask portion of the costume. The eyes are done well, and I think the outline on the eyes are done exceptionally well. If not for anything else, I could say there's a big problem with this paint. This paint carries over as a big issue in the neck, where it just seems that there's certain areas to the webbing that are completely missed. Especially right here, you can see that that webbing does not carry itself over. It's as if somebody just took a paintbrush and just thought, oh, you know what, I'll paint here. You know what, I'll just paint here. I'll paint here. I like the spider logo. However, unfortunately, because it uses the exact same coloring as the webbing, and it's almost on the same raised surface, it might be just a little higher than the webbing itself, but because it's pretty much on par and it's more raised than the blue, I found that the webbing and the logo just kind of blend together to make a big mess. There are areas on the legs, on the spider's legs, where you can see that the red has carried over. I might need to just take a marker or just a little bit of touch-up paint and just correct some of that red blotchiness. Down here again, it looks like the webbing has kind of been missed. You see areas where it was sculpted as such, especially like right here, here, and here, and it's just missed. Or it's painted, and then in areas it's just left off. In other areas it's painted in. Other areas left off. This figure could really have used, if you ask me, either a non-textured web, or they could have done the webbing slightly lighter so that this logo would have stood out. As it stands, you really have to go looking for it to even notice that the spider logo is there. The blue, though I shouldn't say is accurate to the movies, it seems like it's almost a little too light, is at least one of the stronger aspects to the suit itself. It is textured, very similar to the red, but it's very clean. And though I can say it doesn't quite look like it did in the movie, I'm happy with the color that they used. Though again, it could have been a little bit darker. As for his sculpt, I think the sculpt as a whole works well. I feel like Spider-Man could have almost been a little thinner. And having had issues in the past with Spider-Man classic figures and even some Marvel Legend figures that are really, really skinny, giving super articulation to a figure that skinny tends to be problematic. I feel as if Spider-Man could have almost been just a little skinnier, as he doesn't quite look like he does in the movie. He's got some lining going down the sides, which I think work well. It's only really when a lot of the webbing comes together in this situation right here, this situation gets a little messy. As it stands, Spider-Man is posed with his spider webs, as the Spider-Man does feature two different pairs of hands. As it stands right now, he's got his two webbed hands, Excuse me. Sorry, Spot must be allergic to bad paint jobs. He does have two webbed hands, as you can see, and the hands themselves are done really well. Whether you like the fact that the fingers and the hands are blue and you've got red in there as opposed to one solid color, I think it still works well. If you aren't somebody that prefers to have two webbed hands, he does also come with two alternate hands as well, which are just straight out fists. I don't know, I don't know if I like Spider-Man having both webbed hands, so actually what I am going to do is just unpeg his one hand, and making sure I've got the right hand in. I'm just going to do a little bit of twisting. Sometimes these pegged hands don't go in the easiest. And you see there's Spider-Man with his fisted hand. It's really preference based, but I always find I'm kind of getting tired of Spider-Man always having, you know what, he's a Spider-Man, we got to give him his web shooter hands. If anything, I might swap him out and give him both fisted hands, or I might just do what I'm doing right now and have one fisted hand, one spider web shooter hand. I think everything else about the figure seems relatively clean once you start getting past the torso area. His boots are done well, and he's got that little bit of blue going on the heel there. Now, in the way of Amazing Spider-Man's articulation, well, he does have a fair bit. He does rotate left and right on the head. His head does move up and down. His shoulders are on a pin and socket. They move out, front and back. He does have a rotation in the bicep. He has a single bend at the elbow. He does have a rotation in the forearm. He has a pivot and rotation in the hand. He has an upper torso. It almost looks like he's got an upper torso ball joint where it will move left and right. Not a lot though, but he will move up and down quite a bit. He has no waist swivel, and likely that might stem from the way it's sculpted. I can understand that they would have wanted to leave that off. And he also has the articulation point in the leg that I've never been a big fan of, where he's got a hinged joint, a hinged socket joint. The legs will go rotate forward and back easy enough, but when you want to rotate them out, you'll see that there is a groove there. You'll want to rotate the groove this way, then rotate the thigh back this way, and that will allow him to move his legs out. He does have a double bend in the knee. He does have a rotation in the foot. He also does have a pin and socket or hinged foot as well. So he does have lots of articulation. I find the one thing that probably gives this figure a bigger issue is not so much the articulation, but just the overall performance of the paint. Paint execution on this figure is really, really bad. It could have been a lot worse, but I feel like this is just disastrous. This is, again, a good example where I feel as if, had they only even just lightened the coloring on the webbing and then made the symbol on the chest darker, it would have stood out really well. I think the arms are done well, the legs are done well, but it's the chest and the head, I think, that almost make this figure more disappointing than what he needs to be. The symbol on the back works. Not a whole heck of a lot of issue with the symbol on the back. Paint's really clean and everything is done well to it. It's just when you start looking around at the front that you see a little bit of a quality issue. I like this figure. I just feel it could have been better. Would I recommend the figure? Being that it looks like we're going to get a different costume for Amazing Spider-Man 2, I would say it's nice to have an Amazing Spider-Man figure depicted from the first movie. So for that reason, I would say yes. I will say, though, expect that when you get the figure out of package, notice that there's going to be a little bit of a glaring issue with some of the paint, especially applied on the webbing. The Amazing Spider-Man from Marvel Select, I'm going to give him a 6. Today's Toy Spot, we're having a look at the Marvel Select Amazing Spider-Man. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.